everybody. Welcome live to the Jim Master Show, live entertainment lifestyle celebrity talk show series. So good to have you here. Also, so great to have Ezra Grey joining us. He's an extraordinary talent. Comes to us right now from New York City, and he's no newcomer to the music scene. He's composed, recorded, or toured internationally with numerous bands since age 15. Serves as a guitarist, bass player, pianist for numerous bands in hip hop, R&B, rock, heavy metal, classical, and jazz. He's won multiple awards for his performances, including Downbeat magazine's outstanding performance for pop, rock, and blues, compositions for the American Composers Orchestra. As a vocalist, he has performed at Gracie Mansion for Mayor Bloomberg in New York City, also on VH1's Big Morning Buzz. Former drummer of the Goo Goo Dolls as well, Mike Malinin, and that is his show. That's really cool. He does have a double degree in music and philosophy from Columbia University. In addition, he has worked with a number of music industry greats, including Tony Levin, bassist for Peter Gabriel, King Crimson, and former bassist for John Lennon, David Bowie, and Frank Zappa, to name a few. And he hails originally from beautiful Brazil. And I know we have a lot of viewers who watch from all around the world, our international viewing audience. We welcome you all. We have a lot that watch in South America. We welcome you as well. But he's coming to us from New York City. And let's take a moment to welcome Ezra Grey to our show. He's going to play live for us too, which he's doing right now. There he is. Hello,
everyone.
Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Great. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me on. I'm feeling pretty good, all things considered.
All things considered. He's just a little under the weather, right? Which a lot of people are this time of the year. But, music is a great healer and a great universal language, isn't it, my friend?
Couldn't have said it better, Jim.
So you hail originally from beautiful Brazil, right? Tell us that story.
Yeah.
Do you have a musical family? Was that the inspiration for music for you early on?
Right. So as far as Brazil goes, my mom's Brazilian. I'm also Brazilian. My dad's American. So I'm both. But I was born there in São Paulo. I lived there until I was like 4.5. We moved here. I wouldn't say that my family is really musical, although my dad definitely has like some musical ability. He is quite talented himself, but he didn't really go down it anywhere near as far as I did. But he played saxophone when he was younger, and he's still pretty good at it. I try and convince him to play every once in a while, and he'll reluctantly pick it up. He does enjoy it though. He was big into blues, and he was big into like blues sax. And so I wasn't conscious of it when I got into guitar playing, but there definitely was a connection between me getting really into blues guitar. I don't know how I didn't put that together. But I guess you're young, and you're like, oh, I don't want to be like my dad at like that specific age, whenever it was. Like maybe I was like entering middle school
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I want to be like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm not trying to be like my dad or anything. But yeah, he's great, and also he's like a surprisingly good singer too. Although he doesn't actually sing. The only time he actually sings is when like he's kind of just joking around and he's like singing a joke dad song kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, hold on a second. Like I realized years later, after I was already doing music, I was like, wait a minute, like he can sing well. Like he could actually sing.
Which is really, really cool. So obviously you're in New York City, but you've also been in Westchester, Miami, other parts as well too, right?
Yeah. Miami was for a good amount of time. I lived in Miami from like 2004 until 2011. And that was great. It really exposed me to, I didn't like it at all when I first moved there. It was so different from what I had experienced. Obviously I lived in Brazil until I was 4.5, but I was really young. You don't really see much of the world when you're that young. And I mean, obviously I have a lot of memories of it, and I go back to visit frequently. But yeah, Miami it was just a bit of I wouldn't say culture shock, but it was just a different way of life. People were really laid back, and I had gotten really used to the Northeastern thing. Yeah. Especially since like I was maybe around 10 and a half at that time, 10 and change. And so it just seems like it was like an odd time to move. It was a good time to move because I was exposed to a lot of like different just different attitudes. And then, yeah, eventually I made my way back to New York, which I'm still happy about because I'm still here. I was talking to a cab driver who's going to retire soon and move back to Greece. And we were talking about how everything's getting so expensive. And he used to tell me he had the opportunity to like buy a house, however many years ago in like Astoria for like 25,000. And now they're asking like $1 million and change for it.
Become a hot place now, Astoria, hasn't it? Yeah.
$15 for like a hamburger, that used to cost like $5,
Yeah. Home to Tony Bennett. And
yeah.
That's it, huh? A lot of music coming out of a lot of music. It's incredible the amount of people also, and we've had several of them on who hail from Brooklyn, who are superstars in music and television. There's something in the water in Brooklyn. I mean, Barbra Streisand, Barry Manilow, Neil Diamond. I mean, you can name the incredible people that have come out of Brooklyn. What do you think it is, Ezra? You're there now. Is there something in the water, or is it the bagels? What is it?
It's not in the water. It's not the bagels. It's the people, for sure. I mean, it's just a cool place. Brooklyn's just cool. I remember when I was living in Manhattan after I graduated college, and almost everyone was living in Brooklyn. And I was like, man, like I really do want to live there, but I didn't end up like making the move. It's just a high concentration of a lot of really creative people. It's almost a little much at times. The music scene ends up being you get a lot of really supportive people, but most of the time, I think like any music scene though, because I've seen a bit in like Jersey and a couple other places. Most of the time it's like the other bands, when you're starting out and whatnot. But there's just a lot of really, really creative people here, man. In a lot of fields. That's probably the best answer I can think of for that.
It's a good one too, and it's so true. It's the people, and good pizza as well. What came first for you? Was it singing? Was it an instrument? Did you pick up a guitar first? Because you're a multi-instrumentalist. I mean, piano and bass, and you do so much. What was the very first thing for you early on, Ezra?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't singing. As soon as you asked me that question, I kind of I laughed a little, I chuckled a little bit because it definitely wasn't singing. Because I remember I never thought I was very good at it at all. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the way that my singing voice sounded, and I didn't think I was very good at it. It was like something that I didn't have a lot of confidence in doing. Although it was technically I remember the first time I ever sang publicly. My parents and I guess my sister talked me into it. My parents were having a party. Mine must have been like 5 years old, and then somehow they talked me into like me and my sister singing I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys in front of like this adult party. And it's just a cute little kid thing, but I was like, I really didn't want to do it. But they said it sounded good. I don't really remember how it sounded, but the roundabout.
Nobody has that on recording, do they?
No, but there's some old videos of me singing stuff in high school. It's pretty funny. Although it was a little self-aware because I first started with the falsetto stuff. Because here's the thing, I didn't know that I really was able to sing because I didn't have it's like singing is so much about confidence. I didn't have the confidence to sing, so I wasn't able to explore like the depth and projection and resonance of my voice in both lower and higher ranges. And so I first started with singing falsetto because it allowed me to sing quietly, And so I kind of first practiced that. And so I did this like cover of MGMT Kids, if you know that song, that song. It's a high falsetto song. It's sort of, I use the word self-aware because it's sort of like a goofy high falsetto for a guy, and it's like a dance song. Because sometimes high falsetto can be hard to pull off. Some guys do it really well. Some guys do it so well you don't even know they're doing it. Like Steven Tyler and Chris Cornell. Like as I started getting more into singing, I realized that a lot of times they're actually doing a falsetto, but they're using like another part of their throat or like diaphragm to push out air so that it overdrives the falsetto and like pushes out more, so it sounds like you're getting more of a full-bodied voice, and that's how they can get so ridiculously high, because the guy can't sing that high normally on some of those notes. I'd have to dig into the specific examples, but roundabout answer is that guitar came first, and I got really obsessed with it. Then eventually, I just started writing songs, and I was like, hey, I guess I have to sing. And there was no one around except for, I mean, I was a really good friend of mine that I sang with, and we started a band in high school, but he graduated, he's a couple years older than me. And then from that point, I got myself to a point that was like decent enough. And then I joined an a cappella group in college. And then from being in that group is when I really learned to sing, because I was with some people that I still probably the best singers I've ever met, you know, and some of the best singers I've ever seen. I mean, still, you know, some of them are up there with any singer that I've seen in general, you know.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
You know, you've also, I mentioned, you've had an opportunity, you know, to work with numerous bands and in hip hop, R&B, and rock, heavy metal, classical, and jazz. What speaks to your heart first? What genre of music is your go-to, or that you enjoy playing the most, since you do so much?
You know, so it's not really one specific thing. It's sort of through a medium for me. So on bass, for instance, like I love playing bass the most, and I love it maybe more than anything else when I'm playing like hip hop jazz bass, because there's just something about it. I don't even know how to explain it. It's so visceral. The bass is such a, first of all, it's a heavy, and it's a instrument that requires more strength to physically play, because the strings are just so fat. Like the strings on the guitar are pretty thin. Like on a 6-string or 5-string bass, like I don't know how to be able to demonstrate the thickness. I mean, I have one behind me here. I can kind of at some point go grab it, but like the thickness is just, it's almost like the size of like a baby finger or something, you know, like the fattest string on a bass. And it being that thick and still being like wound metal, it just requires, you got to dig in. And so you're using more of like the rest of your body to kind of leverage it. And on top of that, like for hip hop bass, especially if it's got like a jazzy influence to it, it tends to be the kind of thing that is just one of the most fundamental elements of the music. And when you're playing a live show, hip hop shows also just have a totally different vibe to them. There's a lot less of, you know, like indie rock things where people kind of just vibing out, you know. People are like getting into it. And not that they don't get into it in other genres, but yeah, so for that. And then for guitar, I mean, the most fun stuff to play, it's really fun to play metal on guitar. It's really fun to play blues, fun to play for me, you know, so it depends on the medium.
And even jazz too, huh? And classical.
Yeah. I love a lot of different types of music, and I feel like I really do kind of feel like a different person when I get into the different mediums. Like if I'm stuck on writing stuff on guitar, and then it often feels like you're just going in circles, and you're like, I got nothing, man. Like there's nothing. I'm just playing the same like BS. I'll go and I'll hop on the piano, and maybe I won't have touched it in like 6 months or longer or something. And then all of a sudden, it's like I can just write so much so quick, because it's just something about like maybe it's neural pathways or something. It's in combination with like just the way you think. It forces you to think differently. I mean, for one reason, like the guitar is on a grid, so you have like chord shapes, you know, that you can essentially, you know, move around, and scale patterns and whatnot, mode patterns, and then you can just move them. You know, like you have to learn like a kind of 7 of them basically. And then once you have 7 of them, you can just move them anywhere. And sure, there's levels of complexity to the different things, but on piano, it's linear, and it makes some things easier, makes some things harder. I think the barrier of entry for guitar is pretty low, because if you just want to get the basics down, you can translate, you can play a lot of songs really quick. Whereas on piano, it's linear, and up until the point where, you know, you come to the next octave, you have to learn every individual pattern. So like on guitar, if you have a scale, so a little sniffly, if you have we're in the key of G major, you have a scale, and then we're going to A flat to A. It's just the same thing over and over again, the same pattern rather. On piano, every time you go up one of those, it's going to be a totally different pattern each time. So you're going to G, and I don't have a piano that's like visible here nor on, but every single time you play it, you go up like a half step. We call it in music, we call it going up just one note, a half step. Each time, every time you go up that on guitar, you can see I'm just moving it. It's not anything crazy. But on piano, you gotta just logistically, you have to get your fingers to learn that. And if you're coming to it later, like I came to piano later, it was just pain, especially because I got so spoiled with how transferable guitar knowledge is to different keys that I was just like, you got to learn a different thing for key. And then I maybe understand a little bit more people who played like saxes and other instruments. Like if you're transposing something, it's like kind of a situation. It's not just like, hey, okay, just look half an inch to the other direction, you know?
Right, exactly. That's pretty cool. A little bit of a lesson there for you, everybody watching live. We welcome all of our JMS Lovity viewers watching around the world. So good to have you guys here. Ezra Grey is our special guest. The writing, the songwriting too, we want to definitely tout up that. So playing the instrument first, then the songwriting, then vocalizing. Tell us about what it's like writing and how much you love composing.
Yeah. So the two things I'll talk about, in terms of process, you know, it does, for me, it's different. Not every time. Sometimes it's different. Most of the time I'll come up with something on guitar first. And you know, I'll just be noodling around. Something that I swear by too is for, especially if you're trying to write something on guitar, is to just like remove yourself from the equation as much as you can. Sometimes you'll just come in hot, you know, and like you'll just have something and you just, you know, like as soon as you touch it and it's like it just feels amazing and you know, and the ideas are just coming. But then sometimes you really feel like you do want to write. You feel like there's something in like burning in there, but it's just you don't know. Something I like to do is just try and like to just simplify as much as possible. So rather than start with like trying to do something, try to do something really complex and like weave it into something, I'll start with something really simple and like just like, and if someone's asking me, I'll tell them like just, you know, just try simplifying as much as possible. Just try just something that makes you almost cringe at how annoyingly like easy it is, you know, if you're just. But then you can kind of develop it. You can use like the skills you have as like a guitar player or a musician, kind of develop it. So rather than, you can go like this. And then now we have an idea, at least, you know what I'm
That
saying?
sounds so good, just doing that. You know?
Thanks, man.
Doesn't
Yeah,
it?
well,
You just,
I got
you
Jimi
know.
Hendrix to thank for that. I got a lot of guitar players.
Who are some of those that have inspired you? Some of the ones, whether they're still with us or they're long gone, that you've always gravitated to.
So it depends on, for me, it depends on genre as well.
Right.
But overall, the first two guys, the surprising answer that some people get is Kurt Cobain, because you know, he's not like a particularly good guitar player. But at first, you know, obviously as a songwriter, he's incredible. But for me, listening when I was like 10-ish, you know, to him, I was just like, man, these songs are so cool. They're so brutal and loud. And I just thought his guitar tone was so awesome. You know, it was just this like assault, this like just brutal, like angry thing. But also, you know, he would get like these really nice clean tones at times. But I just really wanted to do that. You know, I wanted to make sounds like that. And then as far as like guitar technique, you know, Jimi Hendrix also early for me, because I just thought it was so cool the way he'd weave stuff together. It was like this bluesy, slightly jazzy thing. But, you know, he was so innovative in that, you know, he took, I don't know what people in general call it. I just call it like it's this combination of playing sort of bass lines weaved in at the same time with chords and melodies. So it's sort of that kind of thing that I was doing, you know. Something like that, you know. And I thought that was just so cool. You know, I think that he was like the first person to do that. I think the guitar community is pretty agreed upon with that. Aside from that, I mean, there's just too many to name, but you know, or like blues guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then a lot of metal guys for sure. But it's kind of in a different category for me.
Right.
I do have to mention Dave Matthews though, because he's someone that doesn't get enough recognition as a guitar player. I mean, obviously as a singer and a songwriter, but his guitar parts are difficult. You know, he wrote. I remember when I was learning "Crash Into Me." Like that's actually a really hard song to play. It doesn't seem like it.
Right. Yeah.
And you're not really moving at all.
No. Right.
And then that part's really difficult to play though, because you have to like bar all these notes, and then you got to move your index finger down. It's like almost impossible to see, but that also it's just because you have to like hold down all these things and your thumb's in a weird position. It's just it really starts to hurt after a while. And so if you like learn songs like that, then like you're in a good position, because also like there's like just a richness and a fullness, because those are really nice chords, and in a lot of his music he's got really nice chords and really nice guitar parts that are kind of just like stealthily hiding there, and then not until like you pick it up as a guitar player and you're like, oh man, okay, like I see what you're doing there. I love the music anyways, but yeah, so he's a big influence for sure.
That's really, really cool. Are your fingers all sore too? You know, you get the calluses, you get
they're not. Yeah, so they're not sore. They're calloused for sure. On my right hand, I don't have as many calluses because I don't use, because this is the left hand is the one that gets the beating. But when I'm playing bass, if I'm playing bass more, because those strings are so fat, then they're not they're a lot thicker, they're like a baby's finger or whatever. But with like wound metal, when I haven't played bass for a while, those will get blistered up and they'll get like blood blisters. But I'll just power through it, because it'll be like the kind of thing where I won't pick up a bass maybe until like right before a rehearsal or like at a rehearsal. And then because I'm not typically playing bass as much these days, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot that I gotta like warm up, like a week in advance, kind of, if I'm gonna really dig into the bass.
What's really amazing is I mentioned you're no newcomer to music. You've been doing it a number of years, and you composed, recorded, and toured internationally with numerous bands, and have since the age of 15, right?
So I've been writing songs since the age of 15.
That's amazing.
And one of them, Into the Sun, I wrote when I was 15, which is why we decided to why I include that as a factoid, because that song is, and I have other songs that are from that era as well, from high school, but they're not out yet. They'll be released later. But that song that's on this forthcoming EP, that was the first single, that one's from when I was 15.
That's really amazing, and congratulations on everything that has been happening too. It's really cool, including this, which is literally hot off the presses. After all, tell us about this album.
Yeah, so it's been the process. It'll be out in not before
matter of weeks. Yeah.
It's been the process of so for the last I don't know, 10 years, whatever it is, after I left college. I'm 30 right now, so after I left college, within that time span of like touring with people, playing in New York, working on a number of projects, I wasn't fully pursuing any of my own stuff. I was kind of like, well, let me just see what happens with these things. All the while I was writing music and intending, to do my own thing. I wasn't writing a lot of this kind of music though. I was interested in a lot of different genres, and because I was playing with different musicians, I would gravitate in sort of like orbit in that genre for a little while. For a while, I was getting back into classical music and writing a lot of classical music and whatnot. And then, in a couple of years ago, or about a year and a half ago, maybe, I met up with Zachy Ali, who co-produced this record and engineered it, and he's also, I've played in a number of projects with him, and I'm currently in a band with him. He plays drums. I was in bands with him in the past, and I knew he was a really good engineer. And I've seen his process. I've worked with him. And I knew he was a really good musician too, because he's a fantastic drummer, but he's also a ridiculously good guitar player, and he's a ridiculously good just music theoretician. And that just informs, the process so much. I'm not saying that an engineer needs to have those things, but as far as like, let's say you're working one-on-one with someone, and it's going to be just the two of you, knowing his multivariate skill set and knowing that he, knowing where he's coming from and that you're going to be on the same page all the time, is really critical. And so I knew that I wanted to put out music, and music there's going to be instrument based, not just me kind of messing around with electronic stuff. Not that that isn't great, and also not to say that people who are making electronic music are just messing around. That's not what I mean, because I do love electronic music, and make a bunch of it myself. But I knew I wanted to get back to doing, something guitar based, some more
organic, grassroots,
yeah,
authentic sounds. Yeah,
and seeing that, like, it looked like there was a somewhat of a shift in the industry towards that amongst. I don't think anything really qualifies as mainstream anymore. But I look at artists like Phoebe Bridgers, for instance, where I'm just like, first of all, I think she's amazing. But a lot of artists where I was like, oh man, like, people are listening to music where there's a guitar in it. And I was just like, it feels so weird. Like, I feel like I'm back in high school. That was the last time that, like, I really remember that. And so I was like, all right, well, and I just wanted to meet up and start recording, like, my whole, like, as much of, like, a catalog as I could. And I had a really long back catalog of songs, some of them from high school. But a lot of them, like the rest of these EP, was written along the way.
How long did it take from when you first started to when you were satisfied and settled with it and ready to get it out there?
Yeah, so it took, there's a slight qualification to this. It took like maybe about a year and a half, but it's also because we have like 2 more EPs already recorded because of that. So we went through that process, and I was recording a lot of songs, and there's still a lot left to be recorded. But I just wanted to get a lot so that I could have a sort of a body work, and then sort of figure out what to do with it. And then if I wanted to try and approach labels, or if I wanted to approach, industry situations, I could come with something, rather than be like, oh, hey, here's like my song. And then, people be like, oh, okay, this is a good song, but like, like what else is going on?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because in order to do anything, but in order to be, musician or songwriter, you have to be able to do it. You can't just be like a one-trick pony, or just not be able to demonstrate that you're going to be able to write a lot of material. And so, yeah, the final form of like this EP it really just came out of just deciding what was going to be what were going to be the right 6 songs. So there's not really much. There's not like it's not a concept album or anything. It's just I felt that these worked well together. They balanced a combination of being similar enough yet different enough that it kind of introduced a little bit of the scope of what I wanted to do. There are some songs that we recorded that aren't on this that are substantially heavier at parts, but I felt like it's just I didn't want to come out of the gates being like a loud, distorted guitar project. So yeah, we'll explore some of that in the next 2. But yeah,
which is really, really cool. People say that your guitar vibe is reminiscent of John Mayer, Dave Matthews, which is, when you hear that, it's kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, man. I mean, John Mayer is great. It's funny. He's somebody that I was so reluctant for years. Sorry, I'm just like super sniffly here. So reluctant for years to like give his props to, because when he was coming out, I was young and I was just getting into guitar, and so I had like a young guitarist mentality of, like, I don't know. There's it's not like I don't know if I would describe it like a cult like thing, but like guitarists, like they can get really like just worked
competitive
up.
Or
well, competitive, sure, but then there's another category of it where it's not competitive. But like at the time, since guitar was still like it wasn't out of like the general public, public's mind.
Yeah.
It just felt like I was like, oh, here's like this guy with like these love songs and selling out, which was like a lot of guitar players that were coming from backgrounds of like, oh yeah, we love like, like heavy metal, or like even, if you're like into grunge and stuff, that had like a lot of attitude, even if it was talking about really like heartfelt things. Yeah. And so, but then, he went through a number of things, and then he went into the more blues oriented stuff, and now he's playing with the Dead. and all that stuff. And he's a great guitar player, man. He really is. It's only with Dead & Co that I've seen him like at his full abilities. And I have a friend of mine that I just saw in Miami that introduced me to Dead & Co. And over the last couple of years, and I hear John Mayer's playing on that, and so he's great. But I think the comparison is mostly like from a result of trying to infuse, guitar playing that is more than, and I'll say this with the caveat, because I do like simple stuff. There's something to like just really simple, especially like there's a charm when someone is like when you watch somebody who's just a great songwriter and singer, and like they're like visibly and audibly not great at guitar, but it's like part of like the aesthetic of it. So I'm not trying to knock that, but as far as the comparison with that, I think trying to fuse like sort of informed playing with songwriting, because I want the songs to be accessible in terms of making them, relatively pop accessible, have them be sing-songy to a degree, have them have elements of complexity that if you're listening for them, you can find and hopefully, latch on to or discover, underneath, like, oh, there's actually some interesting chords going on that are like harmonized and stuff, but it's sort of just like, I just snuck it in there, and over top it's sort of like, lead singer is kind of just taking the spotlight, and then everyone else is like maybe doing the hard work, and so people can latch onto like the vocals or whatever it is that they want. But I'm hoping there's something in it that a wide range of people in terms of how they listen to music, what kind of music they listen to, and how much they care to look at music, can find something in.
You sort of in that EP, you've woven together, which is a unique way to do it, these guitar-driven melodies with some influences from the touring experiences too, with some of the metal bands and others, right? Sure.
I for a long time, because I wasn't working with guitar stuff for a stretch of time. Like in college, I wasn't doing so much guitar. I played guitar and sang vocals in a band but it was very much an ensemble kind of role, because the band had a sax player, a trumpet player, had a female singer who also played keyboards, and obviously a drummer and a bass player. And they were all great musicians. And so it was a lot more of like an organism ecosystem thing, where it wasn't, and I liked it that way. And another reason why I never ended up until now pursuing this is because I always wanted to be part of like a band. I loved the band vibe. I loved it in high school. I loved like the depictions of it in movies and media and documentaries.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
There's something magical about like the band,
Mm-hmm.
But after a certain point, it just became clear, like, all right, I don't know if that's happening, man. And if it is going to happen, it'll maybe happen as a result of me just doing my thing. And then, as a result, I did find some guys that are really incredible to play with. And so I'm looking forward to that. We're still yet to play our first show because we kind of got things rolling and just before the holidays.
So is there a tour going to be attached to this?
I hope so, very soon. There's no plans for it. We've got to first hit like maybe one bar show, but just local stuff. And because people's schedules always
New York area, tri-state, New York.
Yeah, tri-state. I mean, people will definitely will have the capabilities of heading out to like Philly or other places. That's one great thing about being in the tri-state area in the Northeast is that you can hit those shows.
You can be in Maine and in DC, just a couple of hours, right? Exactly.
And cool. You can do like a weekend tour. Is it's a term that gets kind of clowned a little bit too, because people will call it a tour, and then other local bands will kind of clown them for it. It's like, dude, you're just going to Boston and like coming back and playing like a show, like whatever. So
is it on Spotify? Is it going to be on Spotify and all the places, iTunes, everywhere you can get music, Amazon?
It's as far as I'm aware. I'm not familiar with all of them, but it's supposed to be on all of them.
What's really cool is you mentioned that within this EP, you call it, you say you weave in what you call deceptively technically difficult guitar arrangements reminiscent of metal intertwined with jazz harmonies and hints of Latin and reggae influences. So some of those little, nuances for just about everybody. It's really cool. And like you say, the technically difficult arrangements. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I'll take a song that's the title track. It's called After All. I'm gonna have to remember how to play the harmonies. One thing that so part of my writing process is that I'll at least for like these songs is I'll go into the studio having the skeleton of it. I'll have the guitar part. I'll have in mind other things, but I'll just have the guitar part. So like the main guitar part in After All is. Something like that. I can't. So I should know how to play my own songs. But on top of that, actually, can you pull up the song? Do you have it?
Actually, we don't have it here, but yeah. But if you can come up with something, maybe we could.
Well, here's something that's close enough. Okay, so here's a part. I don't know if it's the exact part, because I played it basically in the studio to record it, and then I've played it like 3 times since then. So over the course of a year.
Cool.
So the harmony part is something like, and that's like a first inversion 7th chord, very crunchy, and you lay it over this, and you got to hear them at the same time. Unfortunately, I wish I had come a little more prepared for that, but so that's one example of it. In the song "Yeah, All That's Already Come Out," there's some harmonized guitar solos, which is not something I wanted to do as much. I did wanted to have guitar solos in it as a feature of the overall project, because I do feel that it's time that guitar solos reintroduce themselves into like the public focus in terms of like music, because they're great, man. Guitar solos are awesome.
Just like vinyl has returned. You're right.
Yeah, I think it's just time. I haven't seen it happening. I would love to, although it probably is just because I'm not aware. But so there's this band called American Football that has this song called Never Meant that came out like so long ago in like 99, but they, because of the internet, like blew up in like 2014 or something, and so they came back, and now they're like touring, and like they're having success. I guess like they might have had like a bit of a following in 99, but it didn't really go anywhere. So now they're like a decently big like indie rock band, and they do a lot of this kind of like harmonized guitar arpeggio thing. And it's something that I did with my buddy Lucas, who's a really good guitar player and musician and engineer as well. He lives out in LA. And we did that a lot when we were in high school. Like we always were big on it. It's not something that was we invented. People did it, plenty in the past, but it's just a really nice texture. It was typically done more so with like blending an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar. So like a clean electric guitar and acoustic guitar. But for these songs, I wanted to introduce like a fair amount of this kind of thing to fill up the texture so that it could feel like a complete song arrangement without having to resort to almost anything else besides like maybe two guitars, bass, and drums. We do use a little bit of keyboards at times when we want to get something else. And there's some sections where we use stuff that sounds like a keyboard, but actually is just guitars that we messed around with.
Which is really cool to be able to do that, huh? The technology, I tell you.
It's fun, man. It's fun. And
was it all recorded in New York? Studio.
It was all recorded in New Jersey, where my friend's studio is. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I live in Brooklyn, but he lives in Jersey.
It's always good to have a friend with a studio.
Oh yeah, and he's got nice equipment. He has a
Got a nice
microphone that's a $10,000 microphone.
Really?
There's only like 10 of them in the world. And you got to see it when he busts this thing out. He puts on like these gloves, and it's like he might as well have a hazmat suit. And which I understand it, but it's so funny every time I see him bust out these like black gloves, and it's like he's taking like this like uranium out of like a capsule and putting it. It's a really good microphone. It's
Tell us about, some of the other folks that play on this EP with you. They have some really cool musical backgrounds as well, and have worked with some major artists along the way too, right? Like Ozzy Osbourne and others.
Oh, so okay, yeah. So on the record, the only people playing are me and Zach. But
you guys,
I have a couple of buddies of mine. Angel Vivaldi and Jason Leckberg are two buddies of mine that provided some creative advice, I would say, throughout the process. That's been really, really invaluable. I mean, I can't state that enough.
That's
I
incredible.
don't want to go too much into the details of it because a lot of them in some industry stuff or whatever. But
right.
But yeah, as far as the people playing on the record, it's just me and Zach. He's playing drums, and I'm playing everything else.
And like you said, drummer for Theus, who plays drums.
Yeah, drummer for Theus, and we have a new record coming out soon. It's Theus is a completely different genre entirely from this. Tell
us about it for those that maybe want to dig in and find out about it.
Yeah. Theus is like an instrumental technical power metal band. I got asked to be a part of it when the second guitarist was leaving to have a baby a few years ago. And I was close friends with Zach at that point from playing in another band with him. And he asked me to be part of the band. I met the other guys, and then that's how I joined Theus. And it's very different music from this. It's very loud, it's very abrasive. It's 7-string guitars, and for those who don't know, 7-string guitars have an extra lower string, and they get very heavy, and it's very fast music, very technical music. And so, I'm looking forward to that because we also haven't played a live show. We were about to go on a national tour in April of 2020, and that got canceled. It was going to be like a 20-city tour. It was going to be awesome. And it didn't happen.
Something happened.
Great pause. Most of us were there. I was going to say all of us were there, but then I realized actually, we might have some 3-year-olds tuning in. I don't know.
Well, I was going to say they used to say BC meant before Christ, but now it means before.
Maybe, man. You're onto something there for sure.
It's something. I know you're humble about it, but you've won quite a few awards too, as I mentioned when I was sort of introducing our viewers, and we welcome everybody again who's watching live around the world and who may be watching this later in the archives. Ezra Grey is joining us here from New York City, extraordinary multi-instrumentalist, composer, singer, songwriter, and so much more. From Downbeat magazine, outstanding performance in pop, rock, and blues, and also compositions from the American Composers Orchestra as well. Tell us about that. Congratulations on it too.
No, thanks, man. Yeah, they happened a long time ago for me, so that's why I'm not as kind of worked up about it. So Downbeat happened. I was in high school for both of these things, and the Downbeat thing happened because I was aware of it. I wanted to go to music school, so I was looking for like ways to be competitive into trying to get into really good music school. I wanted to go somewhere like I really want to go to Berkeley, but I was also, as I started to get into classical music more, I was like, maybe I want to go to Juilliard, man, or somewhere like that. I knew it was very difficult to get in. But for the Downbeat thing, I saw that the process was like fairly straightforward to enter. It was, you just had to submit, I think it was, I don't remember how much music it was, but it was like two song submissions of like a certain length. And I was entered in like the blues, rock, pop category. I had one tune that I recorded was like a jazz chord melody, and for those who don't know, like, a chord melody is like is when you're playing like chords and melody at the same time. Basically, it's pretty it's not a misnomer. It means what it says to mean, or means to say. And the other one was just like a blues rock improv thing. And yeah, so I was kind of surprised when that I randomly just heard about it in June after, and they just put my name in the magazine along with the other winners, which they had several. And then the American Composers Orchestra thing, I had signed up for like a mailing list for them. I don't remember why. I guess I was just trying to like learn how to do classical composition. And I saw that they had something going on at Columbia, which I was at a school that I had grown increasingly interested in. Because I really wanted to be in New York, and I wanted to do music and be in the city and whatnot. And I really wanted to go to music school, but like people around me didn't want me to go to music school, which I understand, and I would agree with. I think I would recommend to most people, like, unless you have like very specific plans, it's like maybe don't. But yeah, I submitted.
Get expensive. Yeah.
And it's a business too for the music schools, for any school really. I mean, this is a whole Pandora's box. Get me started on talking about
a whole other episode, right?
Yeah.
In part 2 of our series with Ezra Grey.
I got a lot to say about this, but I don't want to offend people on issues of education. Solely on that, nothing else. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so I was really interested in Columbia, and so I saw that they had this thing with the Jazz Composers Orchestra Institute. It was like a summer program thing that they had going on, and so you could submit to it. They were allowing applications from anyone. I knew that it was going to be mostly like probably really serious composers there. And like it was like an academic conference, but I was like, man, screw it. Like, let me just, especially since like my angle really was like I wanted to go to Columbia.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? Like it couldn't hurt. Like maybe if I get into this thing that the school's running with the American Composers Orchestra, like it would look pretty good. I don't know. So I did it, and I got like an honorable mention from it. And they deemed me an alternate or whatever. But I was really excited about it because I must have been like 16 or 17. Yeah, that was that thing.
That is cool, huh? Did you want to play anything for us? A little something for the viewers watching? They've been commenting. They've all been welcoming you to the show from all over the world, which is cool.
Well, let me think about what I would want to play, because I would maybe want to play something new. Are there any questions, or just people saying what's up?
No, they're just saying hello. And well, a couple of people I think have asked, how many guitars do you own and how many do you play? I mean, how many do you have?
Oh man, I have more than I need.
Got quite a few behind him there. We can see them racked up.
That's like the display.
That's just
me pretending that yeah. That's like, those are all the guitars. Yeah, no, I've recently become so obsessed with Strats. This is a
beautiful one.
Yeah, this is a custom shop Strat. It's got like this this really beautiful neck on it. It's more of a modern neck, and it's got like this AAA. I think it's like roasted flamed maple. But then it's got this heavy relic body. So you can see on the back of the body, it looks like it's, like a real old beat up guitar. And it just plays and sounds great, So, yeah, I love it. I've gotten quite a few Strats lately because I decided that it wasn't a hard decision to make. It's an easy realization to have that this type of guitar fits this style of music really well. And I just really love classic Strat tone. Sorry, I'm just dripping all over myself over here.
He's a little under the weather, folks. We mentioned that before we went live on the air. He's got a little bug that he's dealing with. So for him to come on, I mean, he just he's like Riff Van Winkle. He just slept for 10 hours, and he's only awake just because he wants to be on the Jim Masters show. Otherwise, he'd still be sleeping.
Heck yeah.
I appreciate it. He's a real professional.
I really would love to sing something, but I don't trust my voice right now. But
it'd be very Barry White like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that wouldn't be bad to do at all. But a lot of these songs that will require me to have warmed up a bit, because they get a little higher. But I have a song that came out today, so people can go check it out if they want to.
Oh, that's cool. What's it called? What's the name of it?
It's called Bliss, and we can listen on air if we want, even if
that is awesome. So Bliss, okay.
It's called Bliss, so it's
now, is that part of the EP?
It's part of the EP. Yeah, it'll be part of the EP. We'll have one more single after, and then the whole thing will come out.
The cover. How did you come up with the cover for it? It's cool.
A great photographer.
Yeah,
a great photographer took the photo, and then one of my friends that I was talking to, just was like, let's just do this, and he made the cover, and then he made it black and white, and I was like, yeah, dude, that looks cool, for sure. So yeah, well, I was happy with that.
That is awesome.
Devin Barnes is the photographer. She's really great. She does a lot of stuff for mostly like instrumental guitar acts, plenty, and she's taking photos of like a lot of big metal and guitar oriented bands. And since that's where a lot of my network is, that's right. A lot of the people I end up meeting are people in like the metal scene or guitar scene one way or another.
This is a cool shot too. Where was this?
It's a cool shot, man. That is somewhere in like New Jersey / New York, outside of the city area. I don't remember exactly where.
Beautiful guitar too.
Yeah. I got it over here somewhere.
Yeah,
it's back there. And we were shooting a Theus video for the song "March and Defy." It was the first video that I was in with that band. I actually wasn't on that record because they had finished the record. It was the first one they put out. And they'd finished it, and then the guy needed to leave the band. The other guy, John Kiernan, is a really great guitar player, and he writes a lot of really great music. He does a lot of writing for like wrestlers' theme songs, which is cool.
Sort of like anthem sounding music, sort of.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, it was a cool spot. We had to take the equipment up a hill, and it was not a small hill. It was a hill, but then it was great because it looked like we're on a mountain because it was like a hill on top of other hills, like one of those types of situations. So the video came out cool, and the guy who shot in 8K, and he also used a drone to get some cool shots.
That's the best.
A big mountainous thing. So it's just huge epic scenery. But yeah, taking the drum kit up like the mountainous hill thing wasn't great, but it came out cool. And yeah, that guitar is a Kiesel guitar, which is they used to be called Carvin. It's a California brand, and it's basically like a direct consumer custom shop. I bought that one offhand. I bought that used, but I like buying used guitars, man. I do. This one is an exception, but for the most part, I almost only buy used guitars because there's just something about them.
It's a cool shot too. Was this from one of the performances?
Yeah, I think that was in Budapest.
That was in Budapest, huh?
I think so. Yeah, it's hard for me to remember. I got to look at the tags that I put in order to remember.
What are some of the places like you've toured internationally?
Yeah, so internationally, I did one tour in Europe. It was
that's cool.
With Sonaro. I did some domestic stuff, but it was with Sonaro, which was a band that I met Zachy, who drummed on this record, and he also engineered it. We hit up, although he wasn't in the band at this time, but it was the band that I met him in. It was in 2020. We went to Milan, and Milan was the first one that came to mind because we had to leave Milan before 5 a.m. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to leave Italy because it was right when COVID was like starting to happen. And we know that Italy got hit pretty hard with it. And so we were able to make it out of there. We went to London, played at University of London. We played like 4 shows in Germany. Germany's a big metal country. And this was a metal band that I was with. And so we played Hamburg, we played Berlin, we played 2 small other places I don't recall. I think we went to the Netherlands. And we went to Czech Republic. Went to Hungary, so we went to Budapest. We hopped around. I don't remember every single city at the moment, but those are some of the highlights. I remember Budapest for me was the most fun show. There was the biggest crowd, and they were also just like crazy in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, they were just going insane.
Very excited, very passionate. Yeah.
And especially if you're on the road in like the way that we were, in terms of, we were like one of the support acts, so we were pretty much also the roadies. And so, it was tiring, because we'd have to load up like everybody's equipment, bring it in and out of the venue, be on very little sleep, and you'd be sleeping in we had a tour bus. It was sick, but it was still, you wouldn't get a lot of sleep. And you'd be rolling in, rolling out. It wasn't necessarily like you get there and then you trash hotel room after or whatever. Like, no, you get in, you play the show, you got like, maybe an hour or whatever downtime if you do. One thing that was good about being a sporting act was that you play, once you play your set, you got a lot of time after to just chill, watch the bands, maybe go check out like the neighborhood. And then you load it up again and then hit the road, because you got to be in another place by a certain time.
Have you ever wanted to score like a film? I know that's always a big thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've done some of that. Not officially, but just kind of for fun. I've taken some. During the pandemic, I took like a screen scoring workshop thing at NYU, like digital, or virtually. It's something that I've always been really fascinated with. And so I've done some of it. I have some of it up on my Instagram, or I might have archived it, but I'll put it back up if people are interested in checking it out. It's something that I've really wanted to do. The thing is with that field is it's not something you can just dabble in, because even if you're good at it, because I found that it was almost easier to write for when I had a prompt for something, because you're almost not like, your emotions aren't in the way too much. You can reach emotional depth and states and find it there for the material, but you're not getting in your own way, Right. Whereas a lot of time with writing, you're trying to say something and you're trying to be, super serious about it. Whereas when you have a prompt, you can kind of just do it.
Right.
And there's someone else I was going to say about it. Right?
John Williams, Hans Zimmer. I mean, there's so many incredible people that
I love film score. I really, really do. I love it a lot.
Yeah.
To the point where I was very close to want to go. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I was close to going down that route, but you can't just dabble in it, because it's such a time-consuming and busy.
It's a full-on thing, right?
Full thing, and it's an extremely competitive field. So you can't just be like, oh, let me just mess around with it, Like, you can basically just do that on your own time in terms of what I've done, just messing around with it. And then once I saw like, oh, like if I do this, like it's got to basically be the thing that I do. And hey, maybe at some point I can break into that, but the way I've looked at it was that like people will get approached to do that after having some success. Like Adrian Belew, who is someone who's mentored me and who's been a really big inspiration on me musically. He was also in King Crimson for decades, and then they kind of went in a different direction. And he was a singer and guitar player, and he's a really, really great guitar player and great songwriter and singer. He wrote the score for this animated Pixar film called Piper. It was like a short animated film that won an Oscar a few years ago. But like, for instance, like, it's like he hadn't done film scoring before. He was just approached for it. You'll see that a lot. Like LeBron James, like wasn't trying to be an actor, but he's been in a number of movies.
Animation, video games, animation. I mean, it's a whole area, right? That you could tackle.
Get approached for things. I wouldn't bet on it, but I would hope that, like, if I can achieve some sort of success at first, maybe with this kind of stuff, it will be easier to get into other things without having to like break your back doing it. Because film scoring is the kind of thing because it has an aspect of like the academic music thing, but it's also within Hollywood, so it has all these other rules of engagement. Like I kind of saw a little bit of that when I was in the program, where I was like, oh, like this is a different vibe. This isn't like a musician vibe. Like it's half academic musician, which is also a thing that I saw.
It's like a science, yeah.
But then there's like I don't know how to explain it because I didn't spend enough time in it. But I saw because definitely you have the academic musician, classical thing, but you had so much of like the musicians having to deal with all the Hollywood people, And so it's just it's just a different like way of going about things, and neither good nor bad. It was just interesting and different, and a different vibe. So I was like, yeah, that's cool, but probably not for now.
You mentioned guitar and piano. Do you play other instruments as well, Ezra?
Yeah. So I mean, I play bass. When I say like I play bass and guitar, but I basically anything that's like stringed and fretted. So if it has strings on it and it has frets with these metal things here that delineate the notes, because those basically the tuning might change in terms of like how you tune a note. So rather than this, it might be because like violins and like cellos and those kind of things are tuned in fifths.
Have you tackled those at all?
I've tried. There's an electric cello kind of hiding out back there. It's a cheap Amazon one though. The electronics broke on it. I do play upright bass though. It's something I was able to pick up over time, and I do love that. Upright bass is super cool, but that has a tuning it's just tuned as the same as guitar, which is in fourths. As far as other instruments, the first instrument I ever played was not a trumpet. The first instrument I ever played was guitar when I was 6, but I only played for a month. So it depends on how you want to count it, but I didn't really get into it. I learned how to just play, just a couple notes. It wasn't until I was like, I heard like Nirvana and like Jimi Hendrix, and I was like hit with, this would be the point if we were in a movie to like use visual effects, sort of like what you have with this background going on. I don't know if the viewers can see that.
Oh, they see it all. Yeah.
With like a vortex force field or something.
Right.
And then you get the itch for it.
What inspires you? What inspires you to write and to play? What inspires you to keep you going and keep you creative?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a weird relationship with it. Usually, the best material that I'll produce isn't like, it's sort of involuntary. It's sort of like I have to do it. And like After All, which is the name of the EP, but it's also one of the songs. Like I remember that one, and then a couple others. That one's a slightly different because it was also a little bit of an academic exercise, in that I was very upset about something, and there was the emotional kind of thing where I was like, I needed to deal with it, and like I was kind of like self-medicating with songwriting, but also I was really interested in like trying to write a song as though I were like half Adele and half Chris Cornell, and I was trying to imagine like, well, how would they write this song? And I love Chris Cornell so much, and I've been reluctant to like Adele just because I'm averse when something's really, really popular. I tend to just be a little more skeptical about it. I mean, I don't think anyone can deny, even hearing off the bat, how good Adele is, but she's the kind of musician that I just didn't spend a lot of time listening to. Also because, to be fair, you're gonna listen to Adele whether you like it or not. It's like Beyonce and certain artists. It's gonna be playing in the grocery store,
mall, and on the radio,
everywhere, all the time. So I mean, who knows? I might have listened to Adele or Beyonce or someone as much as artists I listen to on my own time. But yeah, I mean, she's incredible. Really nice, like soulful, bluesy thing going on. And after I started to listen a little bit more to her. I still don't really listen to her, and it's not because I don't think she's amazing. She is, but for some reason, I just don't find myself like wanting to actively listen to her frequently. But every time I do, I'm just like, man, like she has such a great sense of writing, switching up like the melody and like rhythm structure of the melody for like when it's time to go to like a pre-chorus. And we're talking about just like pop songwriting, but like the way, like she never has a pre-chorus that isn't like just exactly like so well written. And then when it goes to a chorus, being a great chorus melody, she really knows what she's doing there. And so I was just trying to imagine like if I were trying to write a song for her, like how would she do it? And it definitely didn't come out anything like Adele, but
how about Ed Sheeran?
I don't really listen to him either, but he's got a great voice. And he's a great songwriter. Now when you say what exactly are you asking me?
Do you like his sound? Do you like his vibe? Do you like his musicianship?
I think he's a fantastic singer. I don't really listen to him, to be honest with you. I think it's a same thing as like he's kind of everywhere, and because of that, like it's not, you know, I don't have like, you know, I'm not like actively against anything, but I'm just kind of like I hear it all the time, you know.
What about people like, you know, because you've dabbled in jazz too, you know, the old school, the Miles Davis and all of those sounds?
Yeah, I mean, I love old school jazz. I one thing that I do really like all the modern streaming platforms and YouTube and whatnot is I found YouTube in particular. If I really want to find new music, and by new I mean just music I haven't heard yet, you know, I find YouTube algorithm to be really good, man. Like, because I'll just click on videos that of like something in particular, like if it's some sort of Brazilian artist or whatever, the recommendations will just be so on point, you know. And for some reason, like having the visual aspect of stuff on YouTube, like it makes me more comfortable with doing the process. Rather on Instagram, I feel like on Spotify, I'm sort of like in a cage to like just the next song all the time. You know, I can't, and it's on a list. So I don't have a visual aspect.
Not like a full experience.
Yeah, it's almost like you're more in a record store if you're just listening, because you can kind of see the covers, you can look around.
Yeah, right.
Even though it's on 2D screen, there's a feeling of it being like you're in the
good old Tower Records. Yeah.
Yeah. And I never have made that connection before, but I do like finding new music on YouTube. I think it's a great platform for doing that. And then, yeah, when I want to listen to stuff later or want to put stuff on a personal playlist, you know, go on to Spotify or something. But oh yeah, you're talking about old jazz. I do love old jazz. There's a lot of new guys too. I really love Robert Glasper a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if how many people know about him who are really watching, but he's just done such a great job of being, first of all, being a great jazz piano player and writer, but you know, bringing the people all the time into it. And it's a thing that's like goes back in jazz too, you know, because you'd have back in the day, you know, you'd have Frank Sinatra or whatever, you'd have Billie Holiday, you'd have Ella Fitzgerald and stuff, and that was like getting Beyonce on something, you know, or you know, it was like getting like, oh yeah, we're gonna get Ed Sheeran on you know, on whatever the, you know, classic, you know, on My Funny Valentine. It would just be like normal, but he does that now with like these new songs, and with Black Radio, that was the first album that he put out for Robert Glasper Experiment, which was his kind of not just straight up jazz, but like trying to get into like hip hop and poppy, but with the jazz stuff. And, you know, he has like Erykah Badu on there, and he has Lupe Fiasco, and I think he has Wiz Khalifa on something at some point. So he, you know, he'll get like these, you know, really pop oriented, or, you know, just sort of in the mainstream, whatever you want to call it. But the music will just be so, there's no compromise whatsoever. You know, it's absolutely like, there's an amazing groove, but like his harmony and his improvisation is wild.
Do you like to improv? Is that something that comes easy for you and you just love it?
I absolutely love it. It's like my preferred method of doing music, and it does come easy to me for whatever reason. And, you know, people have different approaches. I like, for instance, even in like a studio or writing setting, I dropped a pick, but luckily I have like 100 around here. In a studio or writing setting, you know, like I mentioned, I frequently, I'll never write solos, almost never will write a solo until I'm in the studio. Because I know that, like, look, I'll just make stuff happen, and then most of it will not be good, but we'll just trim the fat away, and then we'll write something, you know, in the process of it. And then harmonies too, you know, like I know, like, there's only so many things you could do that will make sense. You could do anything, and it might not sound good at all, but there's only so many things you can do with harmonies that will make sense. And so when it comes to that, you know, you have the original parts written, like what I was playing before. There's only so many things you could do with that. You know, you'd have to make it work. You have to make it work. And yeah, but in general, improvising, I love it, you know. And for whatever reason, it's something that does come, it's kind of come naturally. So as far as writing, if I'm writing just at home on a couch, now I'm just gotten into a jazzy mood.
Kind of nice this time of night, right?
Yeah, why not? If it was snowing, even better, and put on
give it a day or so.
That's always true. I do say the same thing. But when it does start snowing, put on also one of those 10 hours of fireplace background ambient sound. Just some jazz guitar.
Yeah.
So
it's really nice. Yeah.
But improvisation in almost any setting, like if I'm playing with bands and there's a solo to play live, I'm gonna just make it up live. Like there will be something that I did on the record. Well, not all the time. Sometimes I'll be a solo that I want to do live if the changes and like there's something about the song where it's just harder to improvise a solo over. And so there's certain songs with like a Theoretician where that'll be the case, where the tempo's really fast and the key it's in, or rather the mode it's in. So if it's in like a harmonic minor mode, like kind of like Middle Eastern sounding thing, or South American sounding thing,
right?
That can be a little harder for me to improvise on because I don't practice those scales a lot. So if it's something like that and I have something written for, I'll usually maybe just stick to those, or I'll stick to like an area of the neck that I'm really comfortable in, that I know I can just noodle around and make it sound good without it, without having to worry about it.
And this is just a prediction looking out, in the crystal ball. I somehow see you teaching, just in the way that the conversation is. I see you mentoring others, teaching, whether it's young kids or whatever. Is that something that you could see yourself doing down the line? Because just even as you're playing various things, just the way you're describing what you're doing in a certain way that I could see people gravitating to.
Jim, you not only predicted the future, you have predicted it so well that you've actually retroactively changed the past. I've done a lot of teaching.
I could see that. Yes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think that every musician, I think like a lot of any field that's like has an academic vibe to it, it just feels like there already is a sense of responsibility in that field, like sciences or like anything that like there's a college department for or whatever. Like you'll have like people have research positions and then they'll also have teaching positions or whatever. And it's always been like kind of, it seems at least in movie depictions or whatever. And then I guess as far as I've seen it in real life, that there seems to be like teaching and mentorship is a large component of those type of fields, no matter who you are. Like even the president of like a college will teach at least like one class or something, maybe not always, but I think that's like a lot of schools try to do that. Like at my school, I think like the professor, the president, like he taught like one law school class, he was busy doing like corporation stuff all the time, but he would, just for the sake of the principle of it. And so, I really do enjoy teaching when it's more like one-on-one, or if it's with someone who's really passionate about it, because there's nothing like showing like the magic of music and like guitar, for instance, to someone who's like discovering it, and you can tell that they got the spark and they have the ability, and like you can be like, dude, you have no idea, like just wait till I show you this thing, and then you explain it to them and they're like, wait, so you can do this, and then all this happens, and you're like, yep, and then there's more to it, but I can't show you until you do this part first. And yeah, it's pretty cool. As far as, and I've taught also at schools, from as young as like kindergarten up until 10th grade, with mixed results. It can be awesome. It can be really painful.
It could be for them or you.
I think both. For both, because at the end of the day, that's why I opened up the first part of saying like if they really want to be there, because if they don't want to be there, it's
all bets are off. Yeah.
Because then you turn into a babysitter, and then if you also don't have that skill set like really down, then it's like it spirals out of control.
If it's the parents' dream but not the kids, then It's a whole other.
But although my experiences with it have always been classroom settings where it's like, I don't think it's much of like the parent thing. It's just I have a classroom full of students, and maybe like 3 of them are like kind of with it and they're down. But the rest you kind of have to like trick them into being engaged,
sort of motivate them, and sort of like Right.
The respect I have for teachers, for career teachers, is like through the roof. It already was. I already always had respect for teachers, but experiencing firsthand what it's like. I'm like, man, like they do that every day. Like that's crazy.
It really is. One of our viewers, I think Maureen in Arizona, she had asked, because you're talking about noodling as you've been doing on the instrument there. Does sometimes some of the noodling actually turn into a song?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Maureen, thanks for the question. It's nice to hear from you. It's kind of just how it maybe like half the time it's how like things will start. If let's say I'm just kind of noodling around and I don't have the intention of writing anything, but sometimes something will come out of it. But otherwise, like if I do have the intention of writing it, I'll be noodling, but noodling in a different way. So like noodling in the first way, maybe if like that's maybe the first word. That's like just noodling. But then I could be noodling with a more like songwriting perspective in mind. So maybe like. And then, that's sort of, and then, whatever, there's an idea there. I wouldn't continue writing that if it were me, but I would maybe keep doing that until I find something else that I like more, like if I had, if I like the first chord, but or then I realized like, the guitar is too bright. Let me turn down. And now this seems to fit the chord a lot nicer. And it's a little simpler. I'm just sort of lightly strumming it. And so it kind of will evolve like that. Maybe you change something about it, but that's like writing with a guitar through an amplifier. But a lot of times too, and I find that again, change, like I said earlier about the piano, like you hop on a piano and change mediums, and then it'll help. Even like on a smaller scale, you don't have to change instruments entirely, but like just writing an electric guitar unplugged, so you don't have a lot of distractions about like, oh, what does it sound like? Do I got to change the knob? Or you're not distracted by it. You kind of just forget that you even play. Like you're just thinking about the notes because it kind of sounds dinky anyways, Right. So you're not thinking about the tone. You're just thinking about what the material is. And it's another reason I really love to write on nylon string guitars, which are classical guitars and like guitars and bossa nova guitars. And I'm not saying they sound dinky; they sound amazing, but they're very unforgiving because they don't have a lot of sustain, and sustain is basically how long a note will just ring out. So that'll keep going. It's an electric guitar or whatever.
Yeah. And if you're just starting out and you're learning guitar from the very beginning, the nylon is so much easier to start with than to go right to the steel. I mean, your fingers end up.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. It's way easier to start off, definitely in almost every regard, because it doesn't hurt your fingers. The steel strings really they really like mess up your fingers pretty badly when you're young. I mean, it's been so many years for me that my body's just, they're always there. I mean, maybe if I don't play for a month on end, I'll be a little bit sore coming back to it. But for the most part, that's there to stay. But yeah, nylon is really comfortable to start on. So if you're ever trying to start on guitar, starting on nylon is great. You trade off some things because it's not as rich of a sound. And if you're trying to play stuff like if you're trying to play Dave Matthews, or if you're trying to play Taylor Swift, or you're trying to play certain things, it's not going to sound exactly like that. No. But it's going to sound amazing for other stuff if you know how to use it. But
Right.
yeah, there's not as much sustain. So if you're trying to write something in any genre, doing it on a nylon, I think, is a great way to, because if the guitar, because it's very unforgiving with sustain, because if you just hold something out, it would have already died on a nylon, whereas that will
Yeah.
just hold out for a long time. Obviously, it's an electric, so it's being amplified. So yeah, or just writing a song on just an electric bass unplugged too, from the standpoint of like, hey, if I can make this sound good in my head, at least with
Yeah.
just a bass line, and again, starting with something simple, maybe make it a little more complex. And I can, imagine in my head, well, there's going to be other stuff there. I can kind of hear what it is already internally. And so there's a couple songs that I wrote that I don't think they're not on this record. Actually, one of them is Bliss. I wrote that way. And that's the one that came out today. So that is, and it's not a great example because that is a bass line that has two notes at once. So it's like, and this is on a guitar, so it's an octave above. And so if you decide to take a listen to it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah, so I just went on kind of a ramble there.
No, it's really, really cool.
I get excited
I love it.
writing.
Yeah. You're very astute in it and very experienced and knowledgeable too, which I think is really, really fantastic. I think our viewers are not only enjoying it, and they're going to run out and get the EP as soon as it comes out. But I was just thinking as you were playing, I said maybe the next EP you could come out with. I think I have the title for it, From Brazil to Brooklyn. How cool that would be, huh?
Yeah, I feel like that's gonna be like a really dope like jazz fusion record, though.
I hear it already. Yes,
I feel like it wouldn't fit like the indie rock thing, but like you get some really great jazz players on it. Like that's a title that
From
like
Brazil to Brooklyn.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you bring in some of those influences? You and I were chatting before we went live on the air, bossa nova and other. I mean, Brazil is a country rich in fantastic sounds. All of South America, the Latin sounds are incredible.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's an aspect of not being 100% sure about it, because I've later, because I love Brazilian music, but it's something I had to arrive at later because I moved when I was young to the States. I was only exposed to so much. And then I later had to kind of return to it on my own, and kind of dig it up, and I'd always, for a while, I wondered like, oh man, I wish there was an easier way for me to like, I guess I could ask family and whatnot, but like, how often do you ask like a family member to introduce you to music? Like you might not trust their opinions on things, or maybe you do, maybe people have different opinions. Or their family members have different opinions that they trust more on music. I'm not saying that I don't with my own family, but I don't find myself asking friends even, necessarily. I feel like everyone's very personal in how they discover music, and I think you're a lot more open to go to a show with somebody for a band. But as far as Brazil goes, I kind of arrived at it later on my own. But I do wonder, like, to what extent was just being around it when I was really young,
Right.
And hearing it all the time. Because what's fascinating is that, even today, like this year today, there's still so much of Brazilian like popular music that is very like jazz influence, a lot more than here. And it definitely was the case a lot in the past. And there's like such a very rich history of like very like mainstream music that I've just, like Milton Nascimento is like an amazing Brazilian singer and songwriter. He's just, I don't even want to start talking about him because I'll never stop. And I don't even remember your original question asking about.
Well, talk about some of the, having the Brazilian heritage, and does that ever sort of just naturally find its way into your music? And is it something, like you say, you had to reintroduce yourself to it, something you'd like to explore further at some point, that fabulous sound that it is?
So it definitely does find its way into my music a lot. I find that I will very frequently just be playing in that kind of like mindset of like a bossa. I'll just kind of be playing in that almost as a default sometimes. You know, if I don't have anything else going on, I just kind of want to play those sounds. As far as, you know, as writing songs, I as part of my like back catalog of songs that are kind of unreleased, which is the vast majority of them, no doubt. Aside from 3 now, although just one hot off the press, so I will urge people to check it out. But yeah, I do find myself just kind of defaulting to jazz in general, but like a bossa kind of thing. I've written some songs as far as incorporating into this kind of thing. Possibly. I would have to carefully examine how to do it, because when I think about how to incorporate it, I would think more so about like the rhythms of it, which I don't think will end up lending themselves well to what this kind of project has been, because there's so much of like that Latin beat to it, and I was like tapping my hand. Big visual component of a big visual component of what I was trying to communicate was the hand tapping of you know, you're kind of like swaying about
the girl from Ipanema, and
right, that kind of boss thing. You feel like it's you're just like on a beach or something. But now one exception is in the song. It's called Horror Show. That's on this EP. Again, horror show. It has some Latin influence. I wouldn't describe it as bossa. It has a little bit of Latin influence, and it's been described to me by a friend as like a very slow reggae, which then made a lot of sense to me after, because I realized like, you know what, like you're right. That's kind of how I was writing it at the time, but I didn't even realize it. And so there's a little bit of that in this, but as far as, you know, this EP, not so much. I definitely will explore it. I think the challenge won't come as much from like the chords and the harmony, you know, because you can find a way to incorporate some really nice jazz harmony into almost any genre. But as far as the bossa feel, you know, like
there is something about that, isn't it? When people hear that sound, I think the heart rate, the blood pressure goes down.
Probably.
And it's very infectious. You want to hear more of it. You can listen to it for hours when it's going.
No doubt.
It's a non-offensive, soothing sort of really, it's really cool stuff. Romantic, whatever you want to make it, you can make it, which I think is cool. Kathleen in New York City, over in Queens, actually, one of our longtime lovely viewers. She loves the blue thing she sees to the left of you. And it's created sort of the strobe effect, which he did just for the Jim Masters show, folks. He doesn't only do that. He just did it for us. She wants to know what that is.
Yes. So that is a Hughes and Kettner. Hughes and Kettner is a guitar amplifier manufacturer. So that is a guitar amplifier. If you can see, the top part is what we call a guitar head, and the bottom part is a guitar cabinet, usually shortened to cab. And it's a guitar amplifier. So it's funny because I've gone digital, and by digital I mean
it does look like something from Star Trek from a distance.
Super cool, right? But actually, I wasn't referring to digital, referring to this, because this is actually still a tube amp. You can actually see the tubes in there; they're kind of just hanging out. But yeah, it does look something. I honestly bought it because it looks that cool. It looks cool, man. But it does sound really good too. I have a friend that has a couple friends that have Hughes and Kettners, and I was looking for something just to have as an amp because I've gone digital in that I use, and a lot of people these days use floorboard or rack mount units that are basically, like emulating the sound of amplifiers, and they do it just as well. So you don't need to. In the past for touring, you used to have to take these huge amplifiers and all this stuff. And you still have to take a lot of stuff, but for a guitar player, you really get away with just taking like a little pedal board. But I still wanted to have an amp. Obviously I love amps. There's something great about just having the physical unit of it. You can touch the knobs, and obviously it lights up, which is particularly cool about this thing. And I think it sounds nice. So
It really,
Yeah,
really
it's cool
does.
though. So that's a guitar amplifier. Hughes and Kettner. It's a German company.
Yes, very nice. Gang, here is, look for this coming out really in, at the time of this live show. If you watch this a year from now, this will have been already out, and probably lots more music from our great guest, Ezra Grey. It is After All, and there's some really cool songs on there. And again, it's coming out just a couple of weeks. Look for it on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, everywhere else.
Jim,
And,
I gotta interrupt you for 1 second. It's gonna be delayed. It's gonna be delayed, but
you're still working on perfection.
No, it's not. It's been done, but it's because of how I have to schedule some things and some.
So this is like a real exclusive preview for our audience. They're getting like a real exclusive.
Oh yeah. But I will say, we do have a song that just came out today, so they can hear another song, and I have two that are already out. So if they just go over to my Spotify, and if they want to, keep up with what I'm doing in general, Instagram's probably the best.
So those are already out for people to hear now. Those on Spotify.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
cool.
There's 3 out on Spotify, Apple Music, doing Deezer, all that stuff.
Good.
Amazon.
Why do you love doing this stuff so much? What's the blessings and joy in your life to keep you doing this? Because obviously you're not only knowledgeable about it, but I can see it runs through your blood, runs through your veins.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you kind of just described the reasons for it. I think that I remember one of the best guitar teachers that I had when I went to this music camp when I was young. It's no longer, they don't do it anymore, but they did it for a few years. It's called National Guitar Workshop. It was super cool because they would get like famous guitarists to come by, and they would get this use this boarding school campus in Connecticut for it, which was a great location for that kind of thing. But this guy, Terry Siric, really good guitar player, really amazing guy. And very inspiring because he had just developed this condition called focal dystonia, where he lost his dexterity in his his third and fourth fingers, which is not a good thing if you're a guitar player, on his guitar playing hand. And so he had to readjust his playing style to use a lot of tapping, and he could very infrequently use his third and fourth fingers. But he had this quote that it was like you just don't go into music unless you can't do anything. You just cannot do anything else. You just have to.
That's very true.
And he said that kind of I could tell that it was a position of strife and anguish.
We've actually had some actors, professional Hollywood actors, what have you, have been through, and they've said the same thing. People will ask, gee, what advice would you give to somebody who would consider going into that industry? And most of them will say, look, if you're 50% interested in going into becoming an actor, actress, what have you, but the other 50% you're considering being an accountant, be the accountant.
Yeah. I would agree.
Got to be 100% in. Because it takes that, energy and stamina and resilience.
It does. The hardest part about it, because there's a few things. I mean, there's I think any artist will they'll be plagued with their, regular rounds of self-doubt that come up, and you think this is just garbage. And then you think it's awesome. And then, whatever. And you have that, whatever. That's kind of just par for the course. But then, what you really got to be prepared for is going to shows and no one's there. When you in the past few years when I was testing stuff out and just kind of on social media, whatever, sending stuff to friends, no one's really paying attention, no one's really listening, and it's just, I don't know what it is. It's it's just people you just got to be prepared for everything to fall on deaf ears, and for people not really to be
as pumped as you are about it.
Yeah, as pumped as you are about it. And I think it's just a human nature thing. For whatever reason, people just don't. I think everyone's guilty of it. I think I'm guilty of it as well with other people's endeavors. Because you see something pop up and you're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, maybe I'll check that out. And then you're thinking about it for 2 seconds, and then you never think about it again.
Never go back to it.
But for that person, that meant so much for them to So another thing with this, and the reason why I haven't gone full on with putting something out, is because I was look, I know that there's got to be a right way to go about it. And I'm just gonna prep myself for that, because I just really didn't want to put out music that I really felt strongly about and not know how to do it and have it no one listening to it. And
are you a perfectionist?
No, to an extent, yes. I'm definitely not in a lot of ways. My playing style is not a perfectionist playing style. I like being sort of sloppy. Controlled sloppiness, though. It's like not like making mistakes, but just in a way that's sort of, you could maybe just, you could call it stylistically consistent. Like you would look at, even Jimi Hendrix was like a pretty sloppy guitar player if you ever saw him play live. Even like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Dave Frusciante, who's another guy that plays very similarly in the style of Jimi Hendrix in terms of the way he combines chords with with bass lines and melodies and whatnot. Everyone remembers, if anyone remembers Under the Bridge,
Mhm.
Yeah, great song. I already lost track of what we asked. I get worked up about the music.
No, we were talking, looking forward, some of those blessings that keep you going and keep you creative and keep you connected with it all, and that you have to be 100% in if you want to do this kind of stuff. And you definitely are. You've made it your calling, your life.
Yeah, awesome. You just gotta be prepared for ups and downs because there's going to be an internal and external ones.
Yeah.
Like, and the internal ones I think people are generally more familiar with, or maybe not. Maybe it's the other way around that people are more familiar with. But I think artists will know, because like they'll just be, because I think you can't really like make art unless like you get a little bit screws loose in some way or another, and so because
sort of like third eye thinking. Yeah,
maybe whatever it is, whatever people want to call it. I remember, one of my favorite Kurt Cobain quotes is that he said about artists. He said, "Artists we're all just big babies." And I just think that's such a funny quote because it feels like that sometimes. You're trying to write something. I mean, the best songs that I write, are just when I'm just allowing myself to be a big baby, and I'm just like allowing myself to be super emotional and just like, man, just write, just be like a child,
just let it flow out. Right.
Be like, really be a child about it, and then let the adult come back and proofreading. You know what I'm saying?
That's it.
Get the ideas out, let the emotion out. It's like a self-therapy thing.
Yeah, it is.
So you got to let yourself be raw with it.
Did you? I want to show the album again and again. Go to Spotify, folks, and you can hear some of it right now. But did you want to play anything out for us as we get ready to wrap up this awesome conversation, my friend? So great having you with us.
Can you play the new track? I want to preview it because my voice is, I'm with a sore throat. I don't want to sing anything right now.
It's tough to play only because of copyright with YouTube. So we get hit with the claims. That's what ends up happening. If it's pre-recorded, it's an algorithm thing that they have. So sometimes if you're able to pluck a few things live, then that doesn't seem to happen. Although sometimes it will, even with that. But
for sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to determine what I can sing that's going to be in my work for my sick register right now.
Definitely not a soprano or alto today.
No, not so much.
Yeah,
I definitely can't sing the title track. It's too high. I'm gonna try. It's like one. I kind of have to. I'm gonna sing a little bit of Bliss. Let me. Do I want to use the guitar? Yeah, I do. I don't really have a choice. I have to use this one.
Oh, because everybody thinks the conversation we've had tonight is pure bliss. So it's just apropos, right?
Yeah. Well, also because the guitar I wrote it on is this bass guitar hybrid. That's a 6-string bass, but it's tuned like a guitar an octave down. And so I can't play it on a regular bass, and I can't play it really on a guitar. So you're gonna hear it's not really gonna sound like what the song sounds like, but you'll get the idea.
This is an exclusive.
Hopefully my voice cooperates.
Yeah.
Gotta remember my own songs. I'm gonna play it a different way. It's gonna be easier. It's gonna sound better. having dreams of yesterday, a conjured rest, a foreign state. This bliss consumes me, but nothing's real about the place. I saw you and your brother, and he told me a secret you keep while you hide in your helplessness. Why didn't you tell me? I know you love me still. I pretend to stay asleep, lying on the couch as you come in and sit beside me. I don't mean to cause you pain, I don't want to bring you suffering. It's just I know what I need. I want you. I know now that nothing good can come of this. And I love you still, and I want for you a perfect life in bliss. But I don't care about you. I don't care about you anymore. I'll make you believe, so it's easier to hate me. Little solo section here, so I'll plug it again. This song is out right now, just came out today. It's called Bliss. I don't care about you. I don't care about you anymore. I'll make you believe, so it's easier to hate me. And bliss. Yes, that's Bliss. Had to kind of rework it for a solo guitar.
That's awesome, my friend. It sounds really good, even in the way that you did it. That's a terrific song. What was the inspiration for that song?
You know, I give it away in the first line. I had a dream, having dreams of yesterday. I had a dream. There's a couple times I've had a dream that I was like, oh man, I gotta write a song about this. And you know, it was one that was just a dream that I had about like a situation kind of thing. Situationship, it's a word people are using these days.
Yeah, right.
And it's not you're not like in a relationship. It's like kind of a weird thing.
Right.
And I just had a dream about it, and you know, it was the kind of dream, you know, like you're doing, maybe you had a breakup or something, or you had something that happened years ago. And for me, it usually happens with these kind of things in terms of like the emotional, like characteristics of how they affect you. And then randomly you have a dream and you're like, hey, like, whoa, like, why did my brain do that to me? I was doing just fine. And then my brain just is like, oh, hey, like, remember that thing that was like, we were like suffering internally about for a really long time? I'm just going to like reintroduce that. And then it'll go away, you know, but like it'll last for maybe like a couple hours after you wake up, because it feels like, you know, it feels very real. So I was just in that headspace, and this is the first song I really remember writing. That was a first dream song that I did, that I recall, and it worked very effectively at getting rid of the bad feelings. Right. So I did it again when it happened again recently. There's a song that I wrote that it's not going to be out for a while, you know, probably a year or something. Maybe it'll be then the next EP. Maybe it'll be a single, but yeah. So twice I've had dreams, and yeah, from the lyrics, if people want to listen to it, they'll get the idea. Then once they know that it's about a dream and a situationship, whatever.
You know, we had she's a great friend of ours and of the show, and she's been on a couple of times, Melissa Manchester. And I asked her, you know, about the songwriting process for her and what inspires her. And what you just said triggered this memory for me. She said that there'll be times where she could be just walking from one end of the house to the other, or she could be waking up from like a couple of hours of sleep or nap or something. And then she'll be hit with something that will be incredible. And what she does is she doesn't want to lose that energy. She doesn't want to lose what's flowing through and out of her. So she'll run to her piano, and she's got a recorder right next to the piano. Right. She'll press record, and whatever's happening, she will work it out right then and there and record it so it doesn't disappear or dissipate, fade away, weaken later on. And then she'll go back to it and then work it. But she could be inspired in so many different ways, but she'll try to capture it and record it. I know some people have told us too, who stopped by the show, they don't necessarily have a big recorder next to their piano, but they'll sing something out or play something out on their iPhone and record it on there. Do you do that too? If you get some sort of burst of inspiration is happening wherever you happen to be, do you try to preserve it and save it and capture it as it's flowing through you?
Yeah, it doesn't happen often when I'm like out in the wild, so to speak. But when it does, I know that I need to take it down. And I probably, the things that I have done on a little iPhone voice note, like I'll be like I remember maybe a couple months ago it happened. I was walking down the street, and then I was like, oh, I gotta record that, and then I'll just be like, just like humming lightly into the iPhone, just to get the melody down, because I'm like, look, I gotta get this down at least.
Gotta save
I don't
this.
think I've ever revisited those things when I'm out in public or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely utilize it at home. I mean, for the last few years, all of this material for sure. Everything was recorded on voice notes first, just so I'd have them. I don't know what I would do with the voice notes at this point, to be honest with you, because there's so much that writing that happens and so much that gets discarded, but unofficially discarded, because also there's so much good stuff in there that, like, let's say if I were to bring it to a bandmate that I was, collaborating with, then you can flesh out ideas, but maybe there's an idea you're just stuck on. Yeah, it's great to be able to use those voice notes. I use them all the time when I'm at home. I record all these songs. I have like an original demo that are iPhone demos. A few of them I can't really, because I'll usually won't start naming the song titles of the notes of the voice notes until it's like, all right, this is something worth naming.
Exactly.
So that then I know, because there's like thousands of them there, at this point over the last like 10 years. And so I do intend at one point to go every once in a while
to revisit them, and
but it's like a huge archive job to do.
But good thing you have them, right? It's cool. You preserve.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's great. Great tool to have. In the past, when I was doing more recording on my own, like at home, on my laptop and my own setup and whatnot, I would frequently try to just record immediately. If I was writing something, just do it immediately. And I would find that not only would it get done, but you're kind of in that creative space. And because the technology was so today, I haven't done that kind of thing in a while, but because it wasn't different when the time I did it, maybe 5-6 years ago. It's so fluid, everything is just, you just hit a button. It's all there, and you can do it so easily. It's not like in the past where, it was such a process to go into a studio. And if you want to do live stuff with live drums, and if you, the way we did it was a lot more of an old school process meets new school, where, for instance, like I've heard there's I don't know if you know the YouTuber Rick Beato.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, right.
He's a YouTuber. I love the guy. He makes great points, and he's really knowledgeable.
Sort of breaks it down for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he'll harp on sometimes about stuff that annoys me, like not significantly so, but for instance, it's like with chopping up vocal takes or whatever. Like, look, man, it's like not everybody can be buying like days and days and days of studio time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna get
expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, even when you're working with your buddies and stuff. So it's like, look, we're just gonna get the takes that look, before you're asking if I was perfectionist, like yes and no, like to a degree, but certain things like that's not gonna bother me. You know what I'm saying? Chopping up. So there's some songs that like every line is completely different. Like every chorus is a new iteration. But some of them, I have an issue with a couple songs that they're not on this EP that will be future releases, where I'll write the song at home and then I'll realize in the studio when I'm recording it and finally singing it full voice and everything, I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty high. And while I knew I could sing it, singing it over and over and again when I'm not in practice for belting up high vocals is challenging. And then I realized, like, there's no chance I could sing this live in the middle of a long set. I was really prepared. And so at that moment I realized, like, well, when I play this live, we're doing it in a different key, because it's just not, and it's actually, for people that don't know, it's actually almost an industry standard to do that with songs. Which is why if you ever pop on like a YouTube version of a song and then you'll notice, like, oh, it sounds like it's a different key, or you recognize that it's in a different key, it just sounds like it's a different note. It's because when the artists are touring, they got to sing so many days and also just like night after night, and they're long sets, and your voice gets very tired. It's something that's you definitely have to maintain. That even bumping it down a half step or a whole step, just one note or two notes, makes a huge difference. So yeah, I was rambling again there.
Yeah, it's another great lesson. I hope you've been taking notes, because as you've been enjoying this fantastic music and maybe being introduced to this fantastic artist, Ezra Grey, here on the Jim Master Show Live, you've had a little bit of a lesson here from our expert. Ezra, this was really awesome, and I can't believe we've chatted for.
I know. I was like, I saw the time when it was an hour and 30. I was like, wow.
It's amazing, and every guest says it never feels like that, because you know why? I don't call these interviews, as I say to every guest, I call them conversations.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's a big difference. It's free flowing, nothing scripted, no pre-prepared questions. We go in all these different directions. And I think what's cool about it is too, we have the EP that is out, which is sort of the hot news, but now people have an understanding a little bit of who you are and what you're about and why you do what you do. And it's going to give them a different appreciation of the music as they add that to their collection, which I think is awesome. You're welcome back anytime. I tell all the guests we keep the porch light on for them. And I hope the show met whatever expectations you had and you enjoyed the time with me.
I had a lot of fun, Jim. I did. Actually.
Did you?
I mean that, yeah.
Well, as my dad has always said, and again, this audience has heard this a lot, but my dad told me this very sage advice when I was 7. And he said, Jim, or Jimmy, because I'm like the 5th James, whenever anybody says something nice to you or kind, always thank them. Be sure and always thank them. Then ask them to please put it in writing and address it management.
No, I hear you, man. I hear that. That is wise advice.
At 7, and it's still it's come in handy many times, professionally and otherwise. So
I found myself saying that to people. They'll come up to me and they'll be like, "Wow, man! Like we get because I work as a sound engineer sometimes." And I'm like, wow, it sounds really good. Like, it sounds amazing. I'm like, okay, can you tell my boss that?
Make sure that you pass that along, please.
Please go tell him now.
Yes. It takes a village, spread, even like we say with this show where we've done all these episodes, spread the word, share the episode link on social media, give it a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jim Master TV. We say all that, which really does, as we all know, make a huge difference in getting the word out. And Ezra, this was awesome. I'm glad. It was a pleasure meeting you. And we're, here in the tri-state area. So hopefully we'll get a chance to
no doubt, man.
See you doing your thing in action. And congratulations again on the EP. I know there's a lot of music that is still going to be coming out. After All, again, is the title, folks. And make sure you get it. And check out the stuff that's on Spotify and Deezer and all right now. It was a pleasure, my friend. And congratulations on everything, really, truly.
Thank you.
And tell everybody about our show. Other folks you think like to pop on, they're welcome to stop by. As we call it, Levity Hall. I said the show has a lot of light, love, and levity back when the show started in the pandemic. YouTube goes crazy when you say that word. Really? So I know all those words. If you say anything,
I've noticed, that YouTube
current stuff, you just go pandemic. People know what you're talking about. And or as one of my friends who was with is going to be coming on the show down the line from Earth, Wind and Fire. He calls it the Damdemic.
Yeah.
Because it's basically what it was. I had said that the show has a lot of light, love, and levity. And one time I said it a little too fast, and I said light, levity, combining love and levity together. And the audience jumped on it. And
For
they
sure.
call themselves the Levities, the Levity Squad.
Having mistakes are a very good thing in music, or a very big thing rather. The amount of times that like something great comes out of a mistake, I don't have a short list right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if like so many classic songs come out of
just happened to
one. Yeah. Well, here's one example. I was watching this interview with Rick Rubin or his documentary or something. The song Tom Petty was working with him, and he was working with another band at the time. Tom Petty had sent him some demos of some stuff, and Rick was like, "Man, there's not really like anything in here." But then he was listening, and in between songs, there was just a little messing around, and he was like, and it was just like for 2 seconds. And if anyone doesn't recognize Last Dance with Mary Jane, which is, I don't know if it's it's one of the biggest hits. It's a classic. And that was, and then Rick heard that and it was like, Tom, like write that thing. And so that's, whether we call it a mistake or not, it wasn't intentional, and then that became, at least for me, that was the first Tom Petty song I heard.
It's we call it inspiration.
Yeah.
It was an inspired moment.
No doubt. And that just goes to show, like, sometimes you just need, whether it's other musicians or sometimes you just need like someone else's ear or eyes, if it's a visual project, whatever it is you're working on,
right?
To just notice something that you did, even if you or didn't do, that. Like in his case, like he played that thing,
right?
Rick was just like, dude, write that thing.
Exactly. Ezra Grey's a cool name for what you do too.
Sure. It's so funny. My Zaki's wife said to me, I'll never forget this. It's so funny. She was asking me about the name and whatnot. And she said, it sounds like a Harry Potter character. And I just haven't gotten over that. I don't know. I also love Harry Potter, just
say that. Hey,
guilty pleasure of mine. But I was just like, it's also, you're so right about that. It absolutely does sound.
It's perfect. Yeah. It stands out. It's unique and it's perfect, right? Why change it? People think
it seems to work.
Well, people think Jim Masters, because I work in TV and radio, they think I made that name up, that's not my name.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not really. They're like, how could you, Jim Masters? It's too smooth. It's too close. Like, that is the name. And why would I change it?
Destiny, Jim. You can't fight it.
That's what it is. Exactly. Ezra, thanks so much again. Really appreciate all the time. This was awesome. And truly, I hope you enjoy the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. You be well. Take some whatever you need to take, hot bowl of soup, tea, NyQuil, whatever it is. And thanks for sticking around, considering, that you are a little under the weather. So thanks for.
I didn't even notice. I didn't know until my nose started dripping. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to drip all over digitally over everybody.
Well, it was because you were getting deep, and it was a deep emotional conversation. That's what it was. It was raw emotion. That's what was happening.
No, but actually, though, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't even thinking about being sick. So.
See, that's what happens. Yeah, that's what happens. I did that once. I was on the air on the radio, and I was on for like 4 hours straight. And I knew when I first was getting on air, something was not right, a little sore throat or whatever. But I had to pound it out for 4 hours, and there was no co-host, and it was just me. But the minute I got off the air, the minute the clock struck the top of the hour, and I tossed it off to news or whatever was happening next, boy, boom, fever, laryngitis, chills. It was mind over matter. You knew that you had a job that had to get done. You had to do it. So it sort of suppressed whatever was waiting for you. But as soon as there was nothing else to do,
no, that's how it works. That's absolutely how it works.
It's really true. Yeah,
like eating like junk food during a hangover, and then as soon as you're done, you feel worse.
Well, I'm sure there's times on stage where you've got a date and a gig, and you've got to be there, and you're not 100%, you're not feeling well, but as you're playing, as you're doing your thing, it sort of suppresses during the process, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I think whether it's whether it's like an adrenaline thing or whatever the case is, and I think that's it's the same situation in general. Even if you're not like sick or whatever, like if you get on stage or whatever people's performing thing is that they do, if they do one, I'm sure you feel similar. Like you get going, you kind of forget everything, and like even like some of the world's biggest musicians, I know they still get nervous, if they're playing something big that they haven't done before. But it's like as soon as you get on stage, like it's just the anticipation. As soon as you get started playing, like you feel great, because you're comfortable, you know what you're doing, you put time in, you're having a good time. And so and which is also why, like, why I said I enjoyed going on first when I was on tour with those bands, because it's like having to wait all night when you're literally just there at the show and you're kind of just standing around or sitting and you're like, great, we're on in like 3 hours, Right. And then you're just kind of standing around and you're enjoying the show, but you're a little distracted because you're just waiting to play.
I would say the only thing that probably doesn't wait for you, that doesn't have any idea of what you need to do, is probably a toothache, because I was on television on PBS and we were live for hours, and we had guests coming in that we were interviewing, celebrity guests and what have you. And a toothache started to develop, and it really started to, and it was getting to the, I was like pressing on my tooth, trying to massage the gum when we would go back to the show, when I wasn't on camera, or when I was speaking and then I tossed it to the co-host and I was off camera, I'd be like sitting there like,
yeah.
And it got to the point where I actually had to ask one of the production crew, is there any way that anybody can run out of the TV studio and find a CVS or Walgreens and just get some of that Anbesol or whatever that sort of numbs?
Right.
And I was pouring that on, and then the camera come back and welcome back everybody. But as soon as the camera went off, it was like, oh, but they ran out to the nearest drugstore to get it. But so I would say probably a toothache doesn't wait for anybody.
No, that's real, man. I can't remember the last time I had one, but I think anyone can instantly empathize with that. As soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, because toothaches, like, there's no negotiating with
it. Doesn't. It's not going to wait.
Yeah,
for
it's like, I guess what like the root of the tooth, it's like it goes right. It's like a nerve right there, right? So it's like there's nothing you can do about it. This is why dentists give you it's why they give you painkillers. It's like it's such an intense pain that you literally got to take painkillers out.
It's tough. Yeah. What actually, it was kind of, you'll probably relate to this. It actually felt better to be talking because I was using the mouth, using the gums. The minute I stopped talking and I was just sitting off to the side waiting to go back on, that was 10 times worse.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was talking to somebody about this because I hurt my back last night moving some equipment, and it's like that never happened, and I was not doing anything like particularly difficult, and I frequently have to move a lot of equipment. And so but it's kind of thing that they were telling me like, oh, if you move around, actually, it's supposed to be better for you. Which I think is just the case. I think most people kind of eventually realize that regardless. But I think the general rule with anything, it's like rumination is doing something about it. But definitely I can see why just talking or, whether you're playing music, when I'm sick, it's like as well, like I'm sick right now, doing anything like being on this show, or, I ate like a huge sandwich earlier today. That felt great. And then as soon as I was done eating, I was like, now I feel worse because I just ate a huge sandwich. It's like a nap,
It's all a circle, isn't it? It's all a circle.
Yeah, absolutely. But
gang, some medical tips from Masters in Gray coming at you. No copay, no charge.
Yeah. There's got to be some sort of disclaimer, though, we got to say, right? This is for entertainment purposes only.
Entertainment purposes only.
Medical advice.
Don't disregard that toothache. Take care of the toothache if you have one. If you have the back pain, go take care of that. And if your nose is running, have a box of Kleenex next to you.
I'm gonna do that. I realized that at the midpoint of the show.
Halfway in, you're like,
I was like, it's a little too late to
But, hey, It was raw emotion. That's what it was.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, my friend
Although
Ezra.
I guess the last
Yeah.
that's a great way to end the show. philosophical philosophical debate on, is it better to have Kleenexes though? Because then you have the visual of like the Kleenexes, and then I can put them
Right.
off screen after.
Right.
But like, while it's not, well, it's like a little bit like unappealing.
It's
for me to
just
be,
like
wiping-
part of your speech pattern, right? It's just like,
it's like,
hey,
it's not ideal
Yeah.
to be like wiping
Yeah.
your nose all the time. But then I feel like when people see Kleenexes, then it like becomes, there's an association where like, oh, it's just
you,
I feel like it's
you and
more-
I could do a
I'm
mini.
asking,
You and I could do a mini series just on life. All the different topics we're hitting upon. We
Oh,
could
yeah.
do like a mini series, Masters and Gray or Gray and Masters.
I like
Today
it.
we're going to be talking
Masters
about
and Gray
how to
sounds good.
handle
That sounds like a real thing.
a runny nose. This is what you do, folks.
Masters and Gray sounds like a real thing, which I think is, when it comes to names, that should be the rule. If it sounds like a real thing that could already exist.
Masters and Gray. That's it. All right, my friend, this was truly awesome. You be well. Congratulations on everything. Of course, our viewers have been thanking you for the, Dr. Masters and Dr. Gray.
Yes,
Thank you for the advice.
Thank you,
Right?
Maureen.
She's in Maureen's in Arizona. Cynthia is in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Ezra, and get well soon. Merlin's in Canada, and she goes, you are a lovety now, a Jim Masters show.
Yes, thank you.
Lovety. Kathleen in New York says, this show has everything. It sure does, especially tonight.
I've been indoctrinated, and I love it.
You're a Jim Master Show lovety. It's the best,
Absolutely.
my friend.
Absolutely.
All right, you take care. Congratulations on everything, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Thank you, and everyone have a good night. Appreciate it, Jim.
Thanks, Ezra. Take care now.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Ezra Grey here on the Jim Masters Show, or Dr. Grey, joining Dr. Masters. We hope you enjoyed it, gang. It was really, really cool. He was under the weather, and we were chatting about that. And I said, how long do you think you can go? And he said, hey, we'll just take it wherever we can take it. And real trooper, right? We did just over 2 hours. But, man, we talked about everything, right? It was almost as if we grew up across the street from one another and that we've known each other for years. And that's what happens here on the Jim Masters Show. I think it was really cool, too, because as Ezra was talking about his music and his passions and everything else, he was also sharing. There's the EP. It's After All. You can find it on Spotify and iTunes and Deezer and everywhere else. There's a couple of songs, Bliss, and there's a couple that are available now. The full thing will be out soon. We'll keep you posted on that. And then he'll have other music that's coming down the pike. He's got a lot of music, obviously, that he is slowly releasing. And they hope to do a tour and all this other cool stuff. We got some great information about some of these photos, too, and the photo shoots and everything that comes with it. Again, he's not a newcomer to music, gang. He's been doing this since he's 15. He was born in Brazil. He moved to America when he was around 4 or 5. And he's lived in Miami. He's lived in Westchester County, New York. He's in New York City doing his thing, and really, really cool to have him here on the Jim Masters Show Live. We have so many great guests that come from so many incredible backgrounds. That's why we call it a entertainment lifestyle celebrity talk show series, because every episode we have something special, unique. It's not cookie cutter. It's not the same old stuff every single show. And I think that's what's great, because it keeps it exciting for our viewers, you, but also for me too, that every show is something special, unique. Our guests that I bring in, that I seek out and find, and we welcome to the show. Some of them, they find our show on their own, or they're PR people or managers, agents. They find our show and they want to put their guest on our show. We love that too. But we're all learning something new, and we're sharing our experiences. You guys are chatting during the show. I'm sort of adding my 2 cents and my experiences into the conversation. And as a host and somebody who listens and somebody likes to engage, and our guests are sharing elements about their life too. And in this case, he sort of meandered some noodling in there, some performance as well, which is awesome. And full circle, right? It was really cool. He got some tips too, music and runny noses. And anything else we can throw in here at JMS, it's whatever we can throw in for your entertainment and educational value. We will do that here for you, and we love it. Take a look at some of the comments. We've been sprinkling a few in here and there as we go along. Kathleen in New York City, thank you, Jim. Great show. Thank you as well. And good stuff tonight, Jim. Thanks to you and Ezra. Great conversation. Thank you, Maureen, as well. And good stuff. Yeah. Hey, want to let you know we've got some amazing guests coming up. This is really, really, really cool. We're very, very excited. Coming up on Monday, we got a little bit of a snowstorm coming in our direction this weekend. I have a big television shoot actually early in the morning. Guests flying up from Houston, Texas. Going to be interviewing them for a television news magazine show that I host. I've co-hosted that for years with Doug Llewellyn from the People's Court, my colleague and friend, and I'll be doing that in the studio tomorrow morning. But coming on Monday, we've got another incredible guest. Now, if you saw our Christmas JMS YouTube JMS Christmas special, which was awesome, we had 10 guests on our show. Some were some of your favorites returning, some new guests as well. That episode you can still see on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. It was a lot of fun. We sang Christmas carols. We did all kinds of cool stuff on that JMS Christmas special episode. One of the guests who was on that episode is going to be with us for a full episode of his own this coming Monday. Again, that's at the time of this live show. If you're watching this 6 months from now, 5 years from now, it will have already happened. You can just look at this episode in the archive that I'm going to talk about. But you may remember Nick Stefanacci, the phenomenal, very popular, really popular pop fusion jazz artist, saxophonist, is going to be with us on Monday. He, again, was with us for our JMS, Jim Masters Show, holiday Christmas episode. And but he's going to be with us live coming up on Monday, 7 Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And he's a very popular pop fusion jazz artist. Great guy. Again, if you saw that holiday episode, he was on for a little bit with us. He's going to be on for a full episode coming up. And then on Tuesday, we have these legendary Vegas performers, not just Vegas, but internationally known, the Edwards twins. They are epic. We just saw them. Actually, we met them in Rhode Island at a big event, at a big convention, and we were there. And then we saw them perform in the midst of the holiday season. And what you're seeing on the screen right now, that graphic, don't be fooled by that. They are Anthony and Eddie. You just Google them. You'll see what I'm talking about before the episode. That's this Tuesday coming up. They're all excited. This is a rare, exclusive episode and conversation and interview because they don't do this a lot because they are so busy. They do 300 shows plus a year. We've tried to, have show dates for them to come on JMS for several weeks now, and we had to work it around their performance schedule. They're so in demand. They are the hottest thing in Las Vegas. They are celebrity illusionists and impressionists. They are incredible. We saw them perform in person just about a month ago. Met them. It was the second time I met them, and they wanted to pop on the show. They morph into some of the most popular celebrities. The look, the sound, it's extraordinary. Barbra Streisand, Celine Dion, Elton John, Rod Stewart, you name it. You wouldn't know it's them. They are the top. They're America's premier celebrity illusionists and impressionists, all of the above. The Edwards twins, Anthony and Eddie, they've been doing this for almost 4 decades. They sell out all of their shows, no matter where they go, across the country and beyond, sell out. There's waiting lists for people to try to get tickets to go to their shows. We know that because the show we went to during the holidays was sold out. So, and they're the nicest guys, and they're full of energy. And again, they're famous. They are legendary, and they are stopping by the Jim Master Show exclusively on Tuesday. That is, and again, just Google them, just see what they do. It's incredible. And then stop by our show on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. This is a rare exclusive event, and we are so excited about it. And they are incredible. They're world renowned. I don't need to tout them because the world does it already. They are incredibly talented, and what they are able to do to morph into some of your favorite celebrities is absolutely extraordinary. You'll think you're seeing Barbra Streisand. You'll think that is Elton John, Michael Bolton right in front of you. It is unreal. But again, they're truly talented, and they've been doing this for years. And they're one of the hottest tickets in Vegas, and they tour, all over, and they sell out. I mean, could you imagine almost 300 shows a year, if not more, 350 or something like that? They rarely get time off. Matter of fact, we're getting them in a brief window in between two of their big shows. So join us then, and it's going to be a great, fun show and really special. And coming up also after that on Wednesday, we've got an amazing person joining us. This is Tommy Burke, and Tommy Burke has written this beautiful, beautiful new story, this fabulous book about his life, but his story is extraordinary. He's worked on some of the most iconic television shows and movies of all time, and Desperate Housewives, CSI Miami, Skin, you name it, he's worked on it. But he's got not only this incredible Hollywood background in television and film, producing and being on some of the most incredible sets, working with some of the most extraordinary people, actors, actresses, and other producers. His story has another twist to it. It's really a story of beating the odds, of survival, of never giving up or giving in, because he has worked through Hodgkin's lymphoma, Parkinson's disease, and things of that nature that came on him and sort of derailed his extraordinary career, which again, he's had an opportunity to work through and beat the odds. It's a story that is moving. It's a story that is of triumph, of hope, of incredible, Hollywood glitz and glamour, but also of surviving things that life throws at you. And his book details all of that. He's originally from Boston, and then he made his way to Los Angeles. I don't want to give it all away, but he's an icon in the industry of film and television. But his story is so inspiring, and his book is absolutely incredible. And he's very open, and he's very real and authentic about his story. And he's going to share it with us here exclusively on the Jim Masters Show live series that's coming up on Wednesday. Again, this is for those who are watching live. If you do watch our series, archived later on, just scroll back in the archives, because we archive our shows. And you can do that on the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. And if you ever miss anything or you come in late, you can see the episode, later, as well as watching it live. Because a lot of people do watch our shows later on demand. They're all available on demand for you. Even shows that we did 3.5 years ago, you can still see with some of your favorite guests and all the great conversations. So Tommy is going to be, and that's just a cool picture with the sunglasses on. He has sight, in case you're questioning that. That's just a cool picture. We couldn't fit it all in. His arms are actually like this, like he's on set, like he's calling the shots, producing a film. But really cool guy and a veteran in the television film industry. He's going to share his story. So lots of amazing people that are very well known that are joining us here day after day on JMS for all of you, gang. And we hope you appreciate that and you love it. Now, of course, if you do love all of this and you enjoyed this episode, give this episode with our very special guest, Ezra Grey, joining us, multi-instrumentalist, singer, songwriter, composer extraordinaire. Like, comment, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click subscribe, doesn't cost anything. Share the episode and give it a like. There's a thumbs up like icon there, and that really helps us grow. It helps us expand, and it helps, more people see these episodes when you simply give it a like. You drop a comment underneath the episode, interact with us, and you subscribe to the channel. Simple as that. All right, my job is done. We hope we entertained you and you had a good time with us here at JMS. We always love that. Cynthia says, good night, Jim, and all the dear lovities. Stay safe, warm. Snowstorm coming, absolutely. Looking forward to your upcoming guests. Yeah, we got so many amazing people that are coming up. Really, really cool people. And we love you back there in Washington, D.C., Cynthia. And Kathleen's excited about all the upcoming shows and amazing guests we have. You as well, Kathleen. Just taking a look at some of the amazing people that are here. And yeah, good stuff. All right. I am Jim Masters, your host. Thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, we appreciate you being with us. Spread the word about our show. Don't keep it a secret. And come see us again here at Levity Hall, home to the Jim Masters Show Live series. And of course, you can see it all on our YouTube channel. And we love it. All right. That's a wrap. We'll see you again soon. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And thanks for enjoying this episode with our special guest, Ezra Grey, right here on JMS. Be well and cheers.